Hello, everyone. This is Tom, and I am joined by the Dewey.
Hello, guys.
And we are just going to talk about the Guild Wars 2 beta that just happened this last weekend, and some things that we think could have been done a little bit better. And I personally, I have quite a few little gripes, but I'm pretty confident that NCSoft and ArenaNet will fix them by the time the game launches. It was a beta, and so as a disclaimer, everything that we're talking about here, I think that they'll fix, yeah. and even if they, even if they only fix some of it, that's what a beta is for, is to get what you need to fix.
Yeah, so, we know it wasn't a final product, what we were seeing, but it being a beta, these are the ideas that we have that could make the game better.
Exactly. So, Dewey, what is the top of your list here on stuff that irritated you?
The very top of the list is not being able to queue pretty much anywhere with teams. Like, playing with friends it was kind of hard, particularly in PvP, in the organized PvP for sure, like the 5v5, 6v6 stuff. If you queued with your team, or you can't queue with your team first of all, but you could go, the easiest way is to go to a PvP browser and then go to the server in which you wanted to play on. Even then, there was no guarantee that you would be on the same team as your friend, making organized teams like just almost impossible. So it was really annoying because I wanted to come into this beta. I had a couple friends that were really into the PvP, and I wanted to test out some strategies, but I wasn't able to do that because I could never get 5 people that I was talking to or that I was friends with on the same team.
Yeah, definitely. The kind of the interface surrounding PvP right now is really it needs some work. You can't organize your team beforehand. People can constantly drop in and out of a game, which is great in terms of like doing something for a few minutes while you're like waiting for an Eternal Battlegrounds queue or whatever. But it's pretty bad in terms of being able to put together an organized team and actually execute strategies with them.
Yeah.
And I can sort of understand that after the original Guild Wars. One of the big complaints about that game was it takes forever to put together a team in Guild Wars 1 because you need all these different classes and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when they ended up doing there is they had a ranged team and then random arenas that you could play in. So hopefully they'll execute something like that in Guild Wars 2 as well. This is something I absolutely expect to get solved during the beta. And sort of on the same line of thought, just playing with friends everywhere was super obnoxious, not just in PvP. So this might have been a beta thing or like a crowded server thing or something like that, but most of the areas I wanted to go to tended to have the original zone filled up, and then you could be sorted into an overflow, which is fine, but the problem is that then if someone from your party joins you in that area, they don't necessarily get put into the same overflow or even an overflow at all. There's nothing that kept together parties in this game, and you couldn't actually do quests with with your teammates unless they were in the same server as you, or it's the same overflow zone.
Queue, yep.
Yeah,
because what they're doing is they made these overflow servers, the overflow queues, where if one world is too busy, like Divinity's Reach has too many people in it, you get stuck into these overflow ones in which you can go around and do whatever you want while you're waiting to enter into the actual like server, the main one. But like Tom was saying, the big problem is just you couldn't play with your friends. Like, let's say, like, I think the easy fix, and something that I would like to see fixed for me, and well, I say easy, I don't actually know how easy it would be just to be, as I, the party leader, go to this area, the rest of my team gets transported to this queue. If there's not enough room in the main server for all 5 of us, then we all go to the same queue, the same like external queue, and that would make it better for me infinitely.
Yeah, or even whenever someone in your party goes through a portal between different zones, if it just popped up and said, do you want to move with them right now? Because there might be a technical issue where you can go to a server and then that server fills up and then your friend wants to join you. Well, you could avoid that by knowing how many people you want to go into the server.
Yeah.
So even if they did something like that, would be way better. But right now, there's actually no way to keep your party together without using creativity. What you have to do is keep retrying until you get to the original zone, and then people can get to you by continuing to retry until they get to the original zone, rather than an overflow.
Yeah. And it's such a big deal because this is a game that you want to play with your friends. It's a game that, let's say I'm live streaming like we were, and I want to play with the viewers. I can't, or it's not as easy because, I can't promise that they'll be in the same overflow server as I was. So.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it really difficult. Another thing that kind of compounded that problem was that I found whenever I was playing alone, the game wasn't that fun. So like when you're running around a zone and like you run into like a pack of Moa birds, for instance, and you've got like a couple of people around you that are either just randomly in the server or they're your friends, and then you fight these Moa birds together. It feels really fun and rewarding, and even though you're in a group, like all of your skills feel like they have a real impact on the way that the fight goes. And then if you're alone, I feel like what happens is you just feel really weak compared to the birds. Like I died to a pack of Moa birds that weren't over leveling me by that much. So I sort of felt like maybe there should be... I think the game does this to a certain extent, at least for events, where it scales in terms of how many people are near you. But I think pretty much the entire game should try and adopt that policy, if at all possible. Other than that, I think I was in a higher level zone a lot of the times when I was feeling like it wasn't fun if I didn't have a group. But I guess because of how... Oh, sorry, I can't keep on talking, but... One more thing, and then I will let it get to you. I guess because of how cool it is to combo skills with other people and feel like this part of a group, playing alone, at least to me, felt unrewarding, I would say.
Yeah, and like I agree completely. Like the first beta that I got to participate in, I was like, no matter what, I was so overjoyed. But that's because it's the first time playing this brand new game that I've been looking forward to forever. But when I got into it the second time, I really just had problems playing it like just by myself. I wanted to always have somebody else playing with me, and I mean that's really what I think ArenaNet's trying to aim for. But inevitably, there are going to be times where you're playing alone. And, I mean, I think the one thing that I could do was PvP alone because I was like, okay, I can do this. But, like, if you're just trying to do some explorable area or you're trying to do, like, a quest or something like that, or storyline, it became very, very difficult.
Exactly.
And like... So that like kind of brings me to my next point. Let's say I am level 30 doing a dungeon or something like that, and then one of my friends is like, hey, you want to help me with a story mission? And he's like level 10. You go and you play with him and you get scaled down a little bit. So you get scaled down to level 10 with him as you're going through these areas. And I just felt like after the amount of time and effort that I've put into this game, that I should have a little bit more of an advantage than just being completely put on like this even ground of, and not even at times, it was just like completely like I couldn't do stuff with one of my friends because he was not strong enough, and like he had to level up other places, and it was just a nightmare because it was I would have to do all the damage and everything, but I really couldn't because I wasn't as high as level as maybe I didn't feel like my help was really all that much help, and I felt like it was almost a pain at times to go back and help like lower level friends and that kind of stuff.
So I'm kind of hearing two different things here. One of them is that you scale down to the level of the zone, and that makes it feel like you got all of this progress taken away from you. And then the other thing that I'm hearing is playing with a friend that's under-leveled relative to the zone. Is that what you're talking about?
No, not... I mean, like, playing with a friend that's under-leveled to the zone, that's annoying, but that's not, then that friend just needs to level up a little bit faster, I guess, or find something else to do to level up to appropriate levels. But it was just more or less of, like, I'm a higher level, and I'm combating things that I get to use all my skills and powers and everything and levels to my advantage, but then when I have to come back here and then I get scaled down again, I'm not doing as much damage. And it just seemed annoying and not exactly wanting to help. And I'm not saying that I should be like completely OP, one shot everything. Like, I think that's stupid. I like what ArenaNet's doing. I like the direction they're going. It's just maybe tone it up a little bit or down, however you want to say that.
Yeah, a little bit less of a scaling so that you're a little bit more powerful than the zone.
Yeah.
So I kind of like what they're doing here myself, because I never felt like I was having anything taken away from me, really, because all that they scale is statistical sorts of things. They scale your health. They scale how much damage your skills do. What they don't do is they don't ever take away skills from you. So I personally still felt like I still had all of those capabilities. It's just that I was put at a level where things in the zone still had varying levels of difficulty. There were still things in the zone that were really easy to do, or things in the zone that were really hard to do. Things in the zone, like, specifically, there will be times when the zone scales you to level 12, and then you're fighting something that's level 14. And there's something in your head, in my head at least, that goes, that seems like bullshit. I'm actually level 30, but I'm level 12, and I'm fighting something that's level 14, and you didn't scale it down?
In my eyes, I always see that, you need to compensate for player skill to computer AI. And so, like, I always see that you should always be a little bit lower level than an enemy. But I think that the absurd parts got to be where you're like level 10 and you're fighting like level 16, 17. And that's like normal. Like, I'm just like, can I be a little bit more powerful? Like, this is getting a little annoying for me, but
sure.
I mean, like, I agree. Like, like I said, I understand where they're going, and I like that they do that. So it's not, like in the original Guild Wars, is you go back to the starting eras, and it's literally you just walk around and auto attack everything, and it dies in one hit. I understand wanting to get rid of that and still, account for some kind of skill and challenge, and maybe it was partially because we did a 60-hour live stream and I just got really tired, and when I was going back these late nights to help, that's when I got annoyed. That could be possibly it, but I don't know.
Sure,
I'll have to invest a little bit more time in it.
I actually think what ArenaNet are really doing here is protecting their content. That's what I'm going to say, is they're protecting their content. If there's, like, a giant event like the Shadow Behemoth in the Swamp or the Ice Shaman, having someone show up that suddenly can just fight that, like, that could fight it themselves, or even that could be, 1/5 as strong, when normally this is something that you're supposed to need, like, 15 to 20 people in order to even start standing a chance at, that's kind of an experience that I think is worth protecting, is having these, having the game feel interesting the entire way through, having different things that feel epic at every point in the game. A lot of the storylines start out with these monstrous enemies, particularly the Char and the Human, and even the Norn has a giant ice worm at the start. And those are instanced, I think. In fact, those are instanced. But having experiences like that just in the game world, I think, is really valuable. And I think if they have to scale you down a little bit because of it, I think that's worth doing. But I can also understand feeling like they're doing it a little bit too much. Like, that's reasonable.
Well, with the big events, like, I can understand. Well, because, I mean, everything in Guild Wars 2 scales dynamically to how many people are there. I don't know, like, how well it scales, because I did notice, like, whenever you had a lot of people in one area, it's just like you just dominated everything.
Yeah, just stomp everything. And I think that is what they're going towards. They want you to feel the strength of being in a group. They want you to feel the strength of you as a player, as well as the strength of the community and banding together. This is a game about banding together, so...
I mean, because it does work similar to, like, Borderlands, where if you're going into an area with two people, it's going to scale those enemies to, there are only two people here. so we're going to scale down the difficulty a little bit. Whereas if you go into area with 15, they're like, okay, we need to up it a little bit. I'm sure there's like a cap point. I don't think they scale up to 60 people, but so I don't know. I don't know where I'm really going with that point at all, but
that'd be kind of crazy if it did like scale to, you know, like absolutely scale without a cap. So that, like, to the point where not only could you die to a Mowbird alone, but if you like walked off to a Mowbird and you were on like the fringe of this giant group of people, like the Mowbird just comes up and like kills you in one hit.
That would be like the end event.
Right. But it would be like the end event, which was kind of awesome. All right, so I think we've covered this. So I'm going to move on to my next complaint was the PvP game type. So there's world versus world, and then there's the PvP. We already talked about how difficult it was to assemble a party in order to play the PvP, and I think actually my complaint might have something to do with that. That the fact that I wasn't able to put together a team of, you know, people that have specific roles or anything like that, the fact that I had no control over that maybe made me feel like this game type was a little bit less deep, but even if you do feel like the capture and hold game type is, you know, a rich experience, and I think it would be a lot better if you could organize your team and you could actually have voice chat with the people that are on your team. This could turn into like a pretty strategic experience, but at the end of the day, it's really a cap and hold game type. One of the maps has neutral NPCs, and if they don't roll out other forms of PvP, I'm going to be shocked.
Yeah. Other forms, other maps at the very least. I really, really, really like the map with the neutral creep camps. That even now, even though I've played a lot of PvP, I still don't mind to play on that map, and like I definitely prefer it to the other one.
Yeah, the inclusion of neutral monsters is always cool. I think that's something from games like League of Legends, MOBA games, Dota-like games, whatever you want to call them, that you'll start seeing that bleed into a lot of things, is competitive game types that have neutral monsters that have buffs and have a real significant effect on the flow of the game.
Yeah, because like I'm pretty sure my win rate on that map was probably like 90%. So a ton of fun, but like there's only so far that the capture the territories can go. That's like you said, they need to have more maps. They need to have more game types. At the very least, like a team deathmatch, or maybe a capture the flag. They had them in the original Guild Wars, so it's not like they're unexperienced when it comes to these things. But you know, you really want to make sure that they're included in those kind of events, and take what you, because Guild Wars, the original Guild Wars had a very good PvP. Take what
Absolutely.
you learned from there and bring it over, and don't just leave things out.
What I really liked, and I really hope to see, what I really liked in Guild Wars 1, and I really hope to see in Guild Wars 2, was the tournament culminating in the Hall of Heroes. It changed names a couple of times, like from like Heroes Ascent to I think Tomb of the Primeval Kings or something like that, maybe vice versa. But this game type was really awesome. I'm sure no one's really familiar with it except for the few Guild Wars 1 nerds in the audience and me and Dewey. But it just had this awesome eclectic group of game types, and you had to put together a team of 8 players with, you know, their skills all worked out to work together as a team, and they had to be able to like win a 1v1 fight, win a 1v1v1v1 free-for-all where 1 is the number of teams there. They had to be able to capture the flag against an enemy team and be successful, have a way, like have a flag runner that they could defend adequately. And they had to be able to capture points and hold them, and there's probably a game type or two that I'm forgetting about. So you had to create these really versatile teams that could do all of these different things and do them well enough to win against, like, you know, if it's, there was one game type where you start out in a 1v1, and then the 4 teams that won those different 1v1s in the same game went up and fought each other in a free-for-all. So you've got to be able to win that against 7 other teams on a somewhat consistent basis in order to feel like you're good at that game type. And I want to see that again. I want to see making teams be prepared for everything.
Yeah. Like, it's... I know they have plans to do tournaments. They want to hold monthly tournaments just like they did in Guild Wars. So I think we can expect something, some kind of tournament mode like that, or at least a monthly tournament thing. But for the Heroes Ascent thing, I know that they're very cautious when it comes to that, because a huge problem in the original Guild Wars was if you didn't hop in the PvP pretty much from launch, you got screwed over trying to find decent teams for PvP because of the ranking systems and everything like that. People were discriminating largely on the ranks, and it makes sense, right? You want really high ranks on your team. But I jumped into the PvP not right away, probably like halfway through my career of Guild Wars, and I was bad at first, but I got good, but I was still well below what the even decent teams were looking for, rank wise. And I know they're trying to avoid similar things like that. They want titles and stuff still. Like they want people to know that, hey, there's a reward for being good at PvP, but they want to try to eliminate that discrimination from the ranks. So I don't know.
I think that there's a quote easy unquote fix for that, which would just be so the original Guild Wars had that problem, but I think that problem was one that was compounded by the fact that it was extremely difficult to put together groups, and therefore the population of people playing PvP was very limited, because you maybe ended up spending like a quarter of your time actually playing the game and 3/4 of it putting together a team. And so if they just created, a robust system for finding players and finding groups, and made it a lot easier to switch between builds, so you could just say, well, I'm good at, this, and this, and made it so that you could easily select one of those 3 options, have like some pre-made characters that you could just, with a couple of clicks, instead of having to log out and log back in, get into that while staying in the same party. Boom. I think suddenly you can set up ELO matchmaking where people are only placed with players around the same skill level, and you could have a big enough population playing it that you no longer have a problem. So if you told Riot Games, oh well, you're gonna have this problem, they would laugh at you because they already solved it.
It's I think that they already made a huge step in the right direction for picking those teams and putting them together, because there's always going to be a meta. There's always going to be the popular builds. But I think how Guild Wars is built, straying away from the Holy Trinity, that you can, it'll be easier to form teams, because instead of I need a monk, a warrior, an elementalist, you can be like, well, the elementalist is great, but it might be able, it can be easily replaced by a necro with, certain skills or something like that. It's not as big as gap where if you're trying to replace a elementalist in the original Guild Wars, it's there's not really anything else that compares to the amount of damage that outputs. Whereas in Guild Wars 2, every class is a lot more balanced. Yeah, the elementalists will do a little bit more damage, but it's not as drastic more as other MMOs. So I think they made a right step there in progressing towards being able to find parties a little bit easier.
Sure. All right, so I'm gonna throw out a couple of just really little things, and you can add any little things. And I don't expect any real big discussion about these. World versus World optimization was kind of crappy. I don't think anyone's able to run the game at a frame rate that's comfortable and as pretty settings as they can get that frame rate at, and then jump into World versus World and not have their computer catch on fire. Unless your computer's just way better than you need to play Guild Wars 2, you're going to have a problem where the settings you play the game at aren't the settings you can play World versus World at, and you're going to have to change your settings in order to play World versus World if you want a frame rate and you want to be able to play decently.
Yeah, if you're running on low, medium, or even high settings, and you go to World v World and some of those big battles, you're getting 2-3 frames a second, maybe.
Yeah, make World versus World ugly. I'm fine with that. Make it so that the characters look like they're from Unreal Tournament 99. I don't give a crap. But make it so that I can play the game on the same settings that I play the game on,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That can be a pretty big fix. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. But
Yeah. And this is another just real quick one. Chat hotkeys. I have to type like hit enter, type /guild, and then type my message and then hit enter. Why can't I type /G? Why can't I just like hit like shift control G? Why can't I hit like shift exclamation point like I could in the original Guild Wars 1?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Simple fixes there, and I'm sure that's something that they'll end up fixing. I know for me, small ones, minion AI needs to be tweaked. There would be times where I'd be like unloading on this guy, and my minions would be just standing around like, "Oh, cool story, bro. Are you attacking this guy? Well, good luck." And I know similar things with pets. People are having issues with pets with that. ArenaNet actually did address that, saying that they know that they're not up to standards yet, and that they will be working on that. So
I feel like that's something like every game that has pets, when it's in beta, the pet AI sucks, and then eventually they work out the pet AI. Or sometimes the pet AI is fine, but people don't know how to use it, and then people figure out how to use the pet AI.
My favorite was I would run into this, I'd go into PvP, and I was trying out the Flesh Golem, seeing how that would work. So I'd like summon the Flesh Golem, and he would, I attacked the catapult once, like the enemy catapult, and for the rest of the game, every time I summoned him, he would just run over to the catapult and start attacking it. Like, no matter where I was on the map. I'm like, "Where are you going? Help me." He's like, "No, I'm on a mission."
Yeah. Another little one is, alright, if you help, alright, so the main quest line in this game is called the personal story, and if you help someone else with their personal story, you don't get an XP bonus for it unless you're on the same quest as they are. So I can understand, like, not wanting people to farm things, but this turns into a problem when you start out, like, you and your friend both start out at the game, like, level 1, you don't choose the same, like, you know, like, I always wanted to join the circus, like, you don't both choose that, and so now you're, like, playing through the quest lines together, and suddenly, one of you stops getting experience bonuses for quests. This happened with Ray and I, and so all of a sudden, you're, like, 2 or 3 levels higher than them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, there's this weird, like, again, this is just a thing that makes it difficult for me to play with other people. And because the game's not awesome, I'm not going to say it's unfun, I'm going to say it's not awesome when you're playing alone. Having things that make it difficult to play with other people just are things that make the game suck. So...
yeah. And small fixes, I mean, well, those are small fixes. There are some pretty big things in what we've discussed. And there are small, tiny little things here and there that I'm sure we missed. And I mean, if you guys had any issues, let us know. Hopefully, maybe a developer will actually listen to this, and that would be awesome if they did. And
that'd be awesome. And if they do, I have 2 really quick things more. One, pacing and hard events. Make them go faster, make it so that bandits spawn faster, and I can kill the bandits faster and get on with my life, rather than having to like wait for 3 bandits to spawn out of a house while we're just killing all of them. Because having a hard event that takes like 15 minutes when you're just crushing it, I don't know. Make it so that it scales somehow with how quickly you're doing it, so you can do it faster and get on with other stuff. The other one is weapon balance. I think the Elementalist dagger is way weaker than the Elementalist staff. I just felt like I had to be in close, and I wasn't getting any payoff for that with the dagger versus the staff. So
actually, like, I kind of want to touch on that a little bit more, just because I felt very similar with both the Thief and the Necromancer. Like, the Necromancer has marks, which are similar to kind of traps that you lay on the floor, and I liked using them, but I felt like they were so underpowered. Like, they wouldn't deal any damage. They had some mitigations about them, but it's just like I felt myself always wanting, like, I got very good at using the Scepter and Focus, and towards the end I used the Warhorn a little bit, but it's just... It did seem like there were just, like, once you found the right weapon set, you didn't use the other ones. There were weapon sets that I didn't even like I tried in PvP, and when I went through PvE, I'm just like, I know this is not worth leveling. So
yeah, exactly. And if you're not the type of person that tries that in PvP, oh man, is that ever unrewarding. to level up your staff, and then be like, well, check out the dagger skills now, and then like you just find out the answer is just that the staff's better than the dagger. Why is the staff actually better than the dagger? There shouldn't be a best weapon set. There should be different styles that you can play with that are unlocked by these different weapon sets.
And this was touched in by a lot of people in the last beta, and specifically, I know this was all over Reddit, like how a lot of people feel that some of the melee, specifically for the squishier classes, so the Necros, the LEs, that kind of stuff, like that was really like kind of hard to master, and it felt like you were constantly dying. And like ArenaNet responded to that by saying, hey, you guys, you played, not very much of this game. It takes a lot longer time to get used to melee combat, knowing everything. And I completely understand that. Like, I know a lot of complaints are coming from, like, the press and stuff because they would get leveled up to 30 and then get thrown in a level 30 dungeon and be like, oh, I'm dying a lot because I'm melee. And I was one of those people. Like, I was like, oh my god, I can't do melee because I'm just going to die over the place. And like I didn't have the melee skill. I didn't have 30 levels worth of playing as a melee character. So
I mean, yeah, that's very much so true, but I also hope that I hope that NCSoft's approach to it is not, well, figure it out. Because, like, alright, so I said Riot on accident, and that's because I know how Riot approaches this problem. And they're an extremely successful company at making competitive games and making games that are played at a high level that millions of people enjoy, which NCSoft is also that. But I hope what they do instead is if a month into the game's release, people still aren't doing melee elementalists, make it fucking rule. Make it so that the game is so fucking awesome when you're playing that. Like, not even, like actually just boost the stats. Like, just make it so that you, like, run in and you can, like, just one-shot anything. Don't change the fact that you're still squishy, but do something that's going to make a lot of people play that, and then tone it down from there. Because you need people to be playing it in order to find out how much you need to knock off of that skill curve. If you just have something that sucks, then you just have people not playing it, and then you have no data in order to make it better with. So just make it fucking awesome. I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think it's a problem to just be like, yeah, we're going to make this overpowered, and we're going to do that for 2 weeks, and we're going to see how that goes.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, wait, overpowered was balanced. Oh, well then.
Yeah, it turns out it was awesome, but people were shutting it down by focus firing it. Oh, weird. That's how a squishy melee character should work. Guess we figured that one out.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was, like... Overall, our opinions, or at least for me, my opinion on the game is I'm still looking forward to it a lot. It's still a game that I want to explore. There's so many positives with it. I mean, we just did like a 35-minute video on the negatives.
Yeah. But and I've got to say, like, from what I've seen, like, particularly in the personal story and stuff, just like the events that they were clearly going for, like, this is going to be awesome. The Shadow Behemoth, the Shaman. The actual storyline doesn't get to that level of awesomeness in terms of the enemies that you're fighting, but I'm 100% certain that it will, and that it'll get beyond that, and I think that this is actually going to be one of the best storylines in an MMO of all time, and that's my awesome thing that I'm going to say about what I think is going to make this game rule when it comes out, and why I'm still super excited about it.
And, like, one last thing, and this is the stupidest thing ever because everyone says it, but ArenaNet, for the next beta, please, for the love of God, let us fight a dragon. For the love of God, let us fight a dragon. Because, that's just, like, at the end event, that's what everyone wants. It's just like, please let a dragon show up. Will it happen? Who knows? But I'd like to see that, so...
Absolutely. So, I think that is about it. I think we covered it all.
Yeah, and a little mini podcast for you guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching.
He's going to do it.
We will see you guys next time.